Welcome to Unit 5, Lesson 2. The topic for today is what's called public goods. This is another area where the private market does not serve to meet the socially optimal outcome, socially optimal quantity of certain goods produced. These are called public goods. They're things that, because of their nature, will not be produced by the market and therefore need to be, if we want the benefit of them, which we'll see that we do, um, they need to be produced by some common entity like the government, collecting taxes and then using it to produce and to make these things available. So I've got an example of a public good just from my neighborhood. Something happening last week. We're putting in city's putting in new sidewalks right in front of my house, and you see the trucks out in front working over a span of a couple days, pouring the concrete, getting it all set up. Nice new sidewalk. We really appreciate it, and even more than just what's in front of our house, which is nice for the way it looks, instead of the cracked sidewalks. It's the fact that the sidewalks of the whole neighborhood are being redone, which really enhances the benefit of those for our use in terms of giving the kids and the dog walks around the neighborhood, just being able to have kind of a beautification of the neighborhood overall. Having sidewalks is something that clearly provides a benefit to us. But from having that kind of work done at my own expense a couple of times, having to do with plumbing, long story, I also know that that kind of work is really expensive. And if I had to pay for the sidewalk in front of my house myself, I might do it, but then again, I might not. And more importantly, my neighbor might not do it. So would it be really worthwhile for me to pay for the sidewalk in front of my house if my neighbors weren't paying for the sidewalks in front of their house? Because then I would get the benefit of my house looking nicer, but I wouldn't get the benefit of being able to take the nice walks on nice sidewalks if everybody else didn't do it either, or if everybody else didn't do it instead. So this is sidewalks and things like that the government provides are public goods in two different senses. They are things that are not excludable. Now down to this table here. For a good to be not excludable means that once it's produced, you can't keep people from using it. So once produced, it's kind of like there for the public to use. Either you can or it's pretty hard to keep people from using it. I guess you could put a fence around your sidewalk if we wanted to. I guess illegal to do that. Technically, you could keep people off the sidewalks and make them pay for them, but it'd be pretty hard to make people pay for their use of the sidewalks. Have toll booths. There's somebody monitoring that. So once produced, can't keep people from using it. Makes it non-excludable. And then the other thing that sidewalks are, for the most part, is what's called non-rival. For a good to be non-rival means that my use of it does not take away from your use of it. My use does not take away from yours. If I use the sidewalks in my neighborhood to take walks, it doesn't keep my neighbors from using the sidewalk to take walks. Now, at some point, of course, if you get a really congested, populated area, sidewalks might start to get a little bit rival if there's so many people on them that it's too busy. But for the most part, sidewalks at a population that's at the point where sidewalks are non-rival, my use does not take away from yours. If a good is both non-excludable and non-rival, that makes it a public good. Two other examples are down here: public sanitation, clean streets, clean neighborhoods, and national defense, protection of our country, and at a more micro level, protection of my individual lifestyle from attack by a foreign nation. Those are other examples of public goods. Things they're not excludable. Once you produce national defense, it's hard to keep people from being defended for defending our country from attack. It's not like you can defend some people but not others, or at least it'd be hard to do so. And then it's also non-rival. My being defended does not take away from your being defended. So a key to this, again, going back to life, that the market will not produce public goods. The market will not produce public goods. So think about why that might be. Hopefully it's fairly obvious. Why wouldn't the market produce, for instance, if we left these things to the market, if the government did not provide them, would they be provided? And the answer is no. So from the sidewalk idea, there's two reasons why this is the case. One is that the individual benefit of these things is typically less than the full cost of producing these things. So my individual benefit from the sidewalks, if I had to produce the sidewalk in front of my house, maybe it's worth it. But if I had to produce all the sidewalks in my neighborhood, if I had to pay for them, better put, if I had to pay for all of them, clearly I'm not getting that much benefit out of them. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to make these sidewalks, right? So I wouldn't buy them if I had to pay the full cost of them. Same with national defense. I wouldn't pay for all of national defense. That's kind of a ridiculous example. But the individual benefit of these things is less than the full cost. So no one individual is gonna pay for them. And since they're non-excludable, you get what's called the free rider problem, is that once produced, if everybody can use them, then people will just wait for others to produce them and then free ride on the backs of those who have paid. So since they're non-excludable, even if some people are willing to pay for them, then some others could still use them, and that creates a disincentive for anybody to pay for them because they look and say, well, hey, that's going to be there whether or not I pay for it. Those of you who listen to NPR, this is a classic problem that NPR talks about in every fundraising drive. It's, basically they're saying don't be a free rider on those who contribute to NPR. Please contribute if you're somebody who's listening. But the bottom line is you don't really need to. You can listen to NPR without contributing to it, without paying for it. So it's also non-excludable. And it also, the market doesn't really provide it, right, because the government has to heavily subsidize it. So this is the concept here. Public goods are those that are both non-excludable and non-rival in consumption. And this table goes through some other kind of categories here. And then our classic goods that are provided by the private market are two examples here: wheat and bathroom fixtures. It could be any two examples of things that you buy in a store are generally private goods. They're the opposite of public goods. We're not going to get into these other two categories, artificially scarce goods and common resources, but there's some pretty interesting theory behind those too. We're going to focus just on public goods and how it is that the market should provide public goods, or what the other question we want to ask here besides what are public goods is what quantity should the market provide. So here's the way we come up with that. Okay, so what we have on this next slide is we've got graphs of the benefits and costs for street cleanings. Street cleanings, another public good, non-excludable and non-rival, something that everybody clearly benefits from, but kind of like public sidewalks. You wouldn't pay for the entire street to be cleaned, it would be cost prohibitive. But everybody gets some benefit out of it. So what we have on the left-hand side are individual benefits to Ted and Alice, two different consumers, say living on the same street, of different amounts of street cleanings per month. So what this shows is for the first street cleaning, Ted gets $25 of benefit out of that cleaning. He values it $25 worth. $18 out of it. If they were to do a second street cleaning per month, he gets $18 because of, hopefully you know, this diminishing marginal utility of this, like most things. The first one is, if you had 0 street cleanings, the first one would be very valuable. The second one would be slightly less valuable. Go through the 5th and 6th street cleanings, not very valuable to Ted. Alice also has value to street cleanings in her house, diminishing marginal utility. It's a downward sloping line. And notice it's different than Ted's, which, as we've seen lots of times, that's the way it goes. Some people value it more than others. Ted clearly values street cleanings more than Alice, at least the first couple of them. So, how much street cleanings should the government provide is the question here. We've got two people valuing them differently. And then we've got a cost of street cleaning, and that go over to the right-hand side. This graph, it shows a marginal cost of street cleaning at $6, a constant $6. That's why it's a horizontal line here. So it costs $6 per cleaning for the city to clean this street. Not a whole lot, right? Well, for the first street cleaning, what we know is that Alice gets $21 of benefit out of it, and that benefit is transferred over onto this graph here. There's her $21 of benefit.
And Ted gets $25 of benefit from that first street cleaning. And that's transferred over here. So the total benefit to Alice and Ted, let's say for a second that Alice and Ted are the only ones on this street, the total benefit is the sum of their two individual benefits, so $46. So since the social benefit, this $46 represents the social benefit to providing this first street cleaning. The cost, the marginal cost of providing the street cleaning is only $6. So since 46, way more than 6, clearly we should provide the first street cleaning. And that continues to be the case. We continue adding those up for the second one, the third one, the fourth one. The social benefit, the sum of Ted's and Alice's benefit, is greater than the marginal cost of producing the street cleaning, 6, all the way up to
the fifth street cleaning. You would do the fifth because we get $8 of benefit,
it costs $6. But we wouldn't do the sixth because we only get $2 of total social benefit out of the sixth street cleaning,
where it's going to cost us $6.
So 5 is the efficient quantity, the socially optimal quantity, we should also say, of street cleanings based on the benefit
that these consumers are getting out of it. So basically, in summary, we're taking the sum
total of the individual benefits
for a public good and saying as long as that is greater than the marginal cost of producing it, then we should keep producing it. And we should produce that quantity where
the marginal social benefit, which is the sum of the individual benefits for this good,
is equal to the marginal cost of producing it. That would be the right quantity of the public good. Let's go one more real life kind of thing to mention. We said that national defense is a public good, right? Well, national defense covers everybody. Often we think about how much the crazy amounts of money that we spend on the Defense Department budget. But an economist would look at this and say, well, is that too much money? Let's look at the sum of the individual benefits of national defense. Could we somehow quantify that? It'd be pretty hard to do. But theoretically, if we could quantify everybody's individual benefit, say what they'd be willing to pay to have a safe and secure life free from attack from a foreign nation, that would be the right amount. If we could sum everybody's benefit up, that would be the right amount that we should be paying for national defense. And if you think about it, if we were to do that, that would be clearly a whole lot of money. So are we spending too much on national defense? Obviously, it's arguable. I'm not really arguing it one way or the other. But this is how an economist would look at it. What's the sum total of the benefits of it? And clearly the government should be providing it as a public good. The market will not provide it. If the market tried to provide national defense, if everybody had to hire out their own national defense, we would have an inefficient situation and a situation where people were just not defending it, and it wouldn't work out for anybody, because if somebody's vulnerable to foreign attack, then everybody's vulnerable to foreign attack. Okay, that's it for public goods. See you in class.